It's his land. That's why it was put under his head when he went to sleep that night in Hamarina at the room with the Sulam, the ladder. So it's his land, and anybody living here are Bnei Israel. They're the children of Israel because it's his land. Makes a lot of sense. Yikru Bani, right? They're called my son. That's just, Ephraim, Pasuk, Yikru Bani El Chai, right? They're called Bnei El Chai. They're called the children of the living one. Ayin Shem Eretz Achaim Ilo'an. Okay, so Al Shem Eretz Achaim Ilo'an. Al Shem, the upper Eretz, the upper reality of Eretz Israel, which is the level of Bina, or higher, which is called the land of the living. V'hinei, Adam keshu b'chutz la'aretz, haislo nefesh ma'olam ofani. When somebody lives in chutz la'aretz, as we said before, his nefesh is from the world of the ofanim, which is the lowest level of Vasiyah, the everyday world which we live right now. K'shezach v'niknas la'aretz, if he merits to come to Eretz Israel, right, balo nefesh chadash ma'olam yitzira, right, so then he gets a new soul. Right? Nefesh b'nefesh. Literally, it's nefesh b'nefesh. They called it that because, for whatever reason. But here, nefesh is literally nefesh b'nefesh. You come to live in Eretz Israel, you will get a new soul, a higher level of soul. And it will be enclosed. The more holy something is, the more internal it's going to be. So the holier soul goes inside the external soul, which is the one from before. The first night that he sleeps, he goes to bed in Eretz Israel, right, to have a nice sleep. Both of the nefashos, both souls will ascend to Shemayim like they do anyhow normally, usually just one, but here he has two. Right? But the next morning when he wakes up, when he gets back his nefesh, he will get back the new one, the higher level. So the first night a person sleeps in Eretz Israel, there's a spiritual transformation of the person overnight, literally overnight. And this nefesh is no longer punishable. It did not do a chet, a new soul. The person could be 25, 35, 45 years of age. 85 years of age. The first night he goes to sleep, whatever nefesh he had up until now, all the affairs he's done up until now, this is a phenomenal, remarkable concept that should push the concept of Aliyah more than anything else, from a spiritual point of view. He wakes up the next morning with a brand new nefesh, has done no chet up until now, and therefore he's like starting anew, brand new. And that's what it means, that they forgive all of his sons. Right, that's the sod. Here's the drush. The Gemara Kesuvah says in chapter 13, Kol ha'mahalach dalet amas versus Israel muftach lo shu ben haba. There's a very famous mime in the Gemara that is often mentioned. The people don't understand exactly what it means, but it says that anybody who walks, dalet amas about 6 to 8 feet, and every 6 to 8 feet you walk, is guaranteed a portion in the world to come. Alom haba. Why? Why would it be that way? So he says, that's the sod. That's the drush. The sod of that is because he lives there. The first night he has his sins forgiven. It goes beyond it. We'll see more. It's not just that. Right? Hakavanahu. Because the intention behind this Gemara is that after they give him a new soul that's free of all sins, at that point in time, the first morning you wake up after making Aliyah, this is not word for pilot trips, by the way. He'll say shortly to actually die, to actually live in Israel. But the first morning you wake up, your mamash, after all these years, you're a bein olam haba. Up until now, you've been struggling just to keep your portion, to get it back if you lost it, God forbid, or to increase it if you're a tzaddik. But the first night, they go to bed, they wake up the next morning, they're already a bein olam haba. Now it's just a question of holding on to it the rest of your life. In Chutz La'aretz, in Eretz Israel, we'll see there's a major distinction. V'da ki Eretz Israel eino mechaperes ba'veres hanasas ba'elad hashgagas bilvad. But, he says, and you got to stay to the end of the movie, because this is only a havamin, it's only an original thought. We'll see what the conclusion is. But he says, but you should know Eretz Israel is only mechaper for the affairs that are done accidentally. Aval avonos hanasas be'eretz einu nimchalim el aidi asuri. But any averas that are done in Eretz Israel that were done purposely, right, can only atone for them through suffering. And likewise, the person's going to have to change his midas. You have to show positive change. It's not enough simply to go through the suffering. But anybody who does one ton of it, it's not just bekavana like he eats a horror, but goes out and goes against the Torah in a very big way, so that can only be rectified through tshuva and the learning of Torah. Kain kesav haramak, right? So that's the Ramak's pshat on terms of how the land is mechaper for a person. Aval ekel midak tuva. However, says the Tuva Aretz is the result, that we could be very medayik, we could be very medactic in the language of the Gemara, and say the following: V'lo besetes kesuvas amar Reb Elazar kol. It says over here in the Gemara, kol adar. Anybody who lives in Eretz Israel, sherui below avon, he lives without a chet. Anybody who lives in Eretz Israel, day after day after day after day after day, lives without a chet, free of any sin. That's what the Gemara says. Not sod. This is drush. This is the Gemara of the Gemara. Shenamar bal yomar shekain chalisi ha'am hayoshib ba noise avon. Right. That Kosh Baruch is going to the nation that lives there. Kosh Baruch, the people dwell there. It carries a sin. Akanashana im kain mashma fila avonis. So he says from this that it's the implication is that that even the sins that are done purposely, not just the accidental sins, but even sins done bekavana, the land will atone for gamkein. Ha'aretz mechaperes ve'ein ve'echasher zehayosher ba v'sheval tasa. Ech mechaper ha'aretz esav and asaf. Right. So he says the Gemara seems to imply that that even the sins that are done purposely, the land will mechaper for. He says ve'ech efsher. So how is this possible? Hayosher ba b'sheval tasa. Right, for someone who should be who should do nothing, and there's like when it comes to an avera, a person does accidentally, it's one thing, but a person consciously gets up and does an avera. How is it possible for the land to atone for such a person? So he says, "Ech mechaper ha'aretz es avan asav." How can the land atone for those transgressions done with kavanah? But we can bring an answer from that which the Yalkut Shimoni says on Tehillim. It says, "Ritzisa Hashem Artecha," right? Sheber Shvuz Yaakov, right? That the Kosh Baruch Hu wants your land, and it should dwell, or it should rest with the rest of Yaakov. So he says, "Eretz Asher Hashem Elokav Dorish Osa." As the Torah says, right, the land which the Kosh Baruch Hu, he desires it, he wants it, right? Hufach HaKosh Baruch Hu umahapech ba. Kosh Baruch Hu turns it over, like someone like hoeing, and hoeing the land and the charisha, right? Keeps turning the dirt over, turns the land over. Noisin einav ba. He puts his eye in it, as the Torah says in the Devarim. Until her actions are desirable to Hashem. It's talking about Eretz Yisrael. Not about the Jewish people. It's talking about, but Eretz Yisrael. The mitzvahs shnitztavu aleiha, and the mitzvahs that are commanded with regard to her, in other words, the mitzvahs tuli ba'aretz, shmita, and kloyim, and trumas and meiser, all the different halachas, tithing, they're tithed land. Im hotzi'u Yisrael es ha-meiseres, v'aisim es ha-shmitim, if the Jewish people will, in fact, take the tithes as the halacha prescribes, and they will keep the laws of Shemitah, right? Even, there's a fantastic story this last week about a wine company that won the wine contest they have each year, the best tasting wines, and he stood up to thank after he received the awards, and Eretz Yisrael produces tremendous wines here, great wineries. And it's quite competitive. And he was somebody, a frum Jew, who won a few awards actually. And he stood up, and when he was allowed to speak